Good evening, everyone. We are calling to order the West Hartford Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting. It's Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, 7 p.m. I want to just say the Vice Chair, LaToya Yagaloff, and chairing this meeting. Our Chair, Shannon Marimone, wasn't able to make it due to personal reasons. So we will start with our roll call.
Ms. Merriman, Ms. Yagaloff,
Present.
Mr. Gagnon,
Here.
Ms. Hers, here. Mr. Weiner,
Present.
Ms. Bleich,
Here.
Mr. Goldman,
Here.
Kayla Jaw,
Here.
and Conrad Kalki.
Here.
Kayla, will you lead us in the pledge? Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and so we are actually going to start our meeting with the superintendent's presentation. The superintendent will do a presentation of the finalists for the West Hartford Board of Education Teacher of the Year.
Thank you very much, and if I'm standing for this so that I can greet our Teacher of the Year finalists. So this evening, I have the amazing privilege to recognize and celebrate our three Teacher of the Year finalists, who are, in alphabetical order by last name, Ms. Mary Beth Hickson of Morley Elementary School, Ms. Elizabeth Plouffe of Duffy Elementary, and Ms. Kathy Woods of Aiken Elementary. So I am beyond proud congratulating these three amazing educators. They are just incredible representatives of a talented pool of dedicated teachers who work tirelessly to prepare and inspire every child every day. And I applaud the selection of these three phenomenal professionals whom I want to compliment and thank the Teacher of the Year Committee for their commitment and hard work. This effort, our Teacher of the Year program, is coordinated entirely by teachers, for teachers, and it represents a shining example of the dedication, appreciation, and collaboration that exists in our school. And I cannot think, I said this upstairs, of a more fitting day than today, National Teacher Appreciation Day, to welcome these sterling representatives of our amazing professional education staff to our Board of Education and publicly acknowledge the incredible work that you do every day. The caring efforts and giving of yourselves that you pour into our student body is an investment in our collective future. The dividends returned can be seen in the vibrant climate and culture of this community and the countless ways that students show, and sometimes do not always show, their appreciation. So for me, the executive team, our Board of Education, to each and every one of you, I say thank you. You make a real difference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read a short biography of each of the finalists, and then I will ask them to come forward, and I will present them with a plaque from the Board of Education and an opportunity for a quick photo. And again, alphabetical order, no knowledge, no hints. Mary Beth Hickson. Mary Beth is an 11-year veteran of the West Hartford Public Schools with service as a reading specialist and also as an elementary classroom teacher. Mary Beth currently makes magic happen every day for Morley kindergartners, where she inspires a love of learning, a love of reading, and the development of character and shared values. She is a graduate of Southern Connecticut State University, having earned a Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood and Elementary Education, and also a graduate of St. Joseph's University, where she earned a master's specializing in elementary reading and language arts. She continued her professional education, earning her certification as a literacy specialist through the Advanced Alternative Preparation Program from Albertus Magnus College. She is active in professional learning and advocacy for educational innovation, securing grants and resources in support of little libraries and play-based learning in early childhood classrooms. Mary Beth's colleagues remarked about her dedication and the importance she places on keeping students at the center. Her principal, Ryan Cleary, shared, Mary Beth is the living embodiment of the student-first decision-making idea. She is one of the most compassionate and dedicated advocates for children that I have ever worked with. That advocacy is paired with a passion for speaking up for what she feels is best. I'm told that Mary Beth is not afraid to express her feelings, whether related to the monthly brunch, the kindergarten SST process, or anything else, and building administration knows explicitly where she stands. That's a strength. Mary Beth is active in the community, extending her commitment to service above self well beyond the classroom. She is a coach for Girls on the Run, a nonprofit community-based empowerment program that teaches essential life skills through lessons that blend physical activities with life skill development. In addition, she volunteers with the Crosby Fund for Haitian Education, supporting students in Haiti through scholarship and fundraising. Finally, she promotes lifelong learning through participation in such events as the CREC Open Choice Book Tasting, promoting inclusive education through picture books. She gives back even when on vacation, and you may see her sipping chowder at a meeting of the Eastham Cape Cod Community Group. Mary Beth, thank you for always exemplifying the heart and the dedication of a teacher. And please come forward. Elizabeth Plouffe. Elizabeth's resume boasts 27 years of teaching or education-related experience, having served in more than a third of her tenure with West Hartford Public Schools. Her depth of experience logs service in early education, alternative educational programming, sheltered English immersion programs, and other specialized settings across at least 5 different states, I believe. Elizabeth wisely settled in West Hartford as a special educator in 2017 and has experience at both Norfolk and Bugby, but she traded in her fins and her wings for dragon scales to proudly join our den of special educators at Duffy Elementary. Elizabeth earned her Bachelor of Arts in Human Development from Colby College and a dual Master's of Science in Special Education and Childhood Education from Brooklyn College. Elizabeth has carried her volunteer spirit with her across every setting in which she finds herself. Over the years, she has given of her time in support of efforts such as America Reads, America Counts, the Head Start program, school-based environmental projects, and many more. Here in Connecticut, she has been active serving in multiple leadership roles in Hartford's Noah Webster School, to include as a mini grants manager in support of innovative educational opportunities for Hartford youth, as well as being a Girl Scout troop leader for a local troop. In the Girl Scout spirit, Elizabeth has always been prepared to give of her time and herself to support children through educational activities and character enrichment. Elizabeth is also an active member of the professional educational community. She is a frequent presenter at workshops, parent programs, and professional learning opportunities within the school. She has mentored early career teachers and presented as a panelist in support of learning opportunities related to students with exceptional needs. Her colleagues describe her as the secret sauce to instructional strategies. And her principal, Miss Laverty, describes Elizabeth's command of current research and her ability to translate that knowledge into meaningful, individualized instruction as transformational relative to outcomes for students. Her students describe her as making them feel safe, building their confidence, and giving them exactly what they need to learn and grow. Elizabeth, thank you for living the Duffy promise through your demonstration of compassion for others and your gentle and healthy respect for all learners. Please come forward. Kathy Woods. Kathy Woods of Aiken Elementary is a wise choice and swoops in as our third Teacher of the Year finalist. Kathy has devoted the majority of her career in education here in West Hartford, serving the district since 2008. She began as a teaching assistant at Brayburn Elementary after relocating from North Carolina, where she worked 2 years as a 6th grade upper elementary school teacher. Kathy worked across a variety of schools in different roles, landing back at Aiken in 2018, where she has excelled as a 1st grade teacher. Kathy earned her undergraduate degree, a bachelor's in education from Wake Forest University, North Carolina, and a master's of education with a concentration in reading and language arts from St. Joseph's right here in West Hartford. Kathy is an active and visible presence in the school community and throughout the district. She has served as a homework center coordinator and volunteer. She dedicated 20 years of service on a variety of West Hartford PTOs as her kids came up through the district, both as a volunteer and PTO leader. She dedicated 6 years with the Foundation for West Hartford Public Schools, 2 of which she served as a board member. She is active in the EDC, our Equity and Diversity Council, and I see her frequently where she offers me sage counsel as a member of the Superintendent's Advisory Committee. Aiken staff always know where to find her in the morning, reheating her Starbucks coffee. Kathy also has a long-standing connection to the Department of Children and Families as a licensed foster parent. In recognition of her incredible dedication and contributions to community and youth, Kathy was recognized as the West Hartford Educator Association's Citizen of the Year in 2010. Kathy has a range of interests and is known to have a green thumb. Speaking on her strengths as principal, Principal Maury remarked, "Kathy brings 1st grade to life with the same care and patience she gives to her beloved garden, planting seeds of curiosity, watering them with encouragement, and somehow getting every little learner to bloom in their own unique way. Having lived in 7 different states, she's basically a walking social studies lesson, full of stories, perspectives, and the kind of adaptability that makes even the wiggliest 1st graders feel right at home. Whether she's nurturing young readers or the latest batch of flowers, Kathy proves that with the right mix of sunshine, structure, and a great sense of humor, anything can grow." Kathy, thank you for sowing the seeds of inspiration among all those with whom you touch, students, families, and colleagues alike. Please come to be recognized. Our Teacher of the Year finalists. One big round of applause for all 3 of them.
Congratulations to all of the finalists. And also, I was going to wait till the end of the meeting to say this, but I think this is a perfect time to say happy Teacher Appreciation Day and week and month and year, because the work that you do is constant and we really value you. It is really... it's always been a challenging time to be an educator, but this is a uniquely challenging time to be in the field of education. And to see the way that y'all show up with smiles on your faces, and there's so much passion and love and support for our kids in the community, can't thank you enough. So thank you. We appreciate you. We value you. All right. So we're going to move on to public comments. And so, public comments, you have 3 minutes per person, and people commenting on the agenda items will be permitted to comment first. We don't respond. That's just part of our own policy. And when it's time for you to start landing the plane, I'll just go like this. So we have one person, Ryan Carstead. Did I pronounce that correctly? Ryan Carstead? Yes. Okay, awesome. All right, come on, Ryan. So you just come up and just state your town of residence and, yep, right there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Ryan. I'm a resident of West Hartford and a proud parent of a 7 and 15-year-old. My family left our support system. We moved across the country to the best school district we could find and afford, ultimately. I was educated in a poor rural district in Texas about 30 years ago. And to some extent, I'm a little shocked at the quality of education my oldest is receiving, with regards at least to technology usage in schools. My oldest child's mental health has suffered. His grades have fallen dramatically due to his access to these addictive platforms like YouTube on school networks. None of these websites are accessible in my home. His screen usage is limited and monitored while at home. He chooses to skip clubs in favor of more screen time. He also skipped eating lunch in order to access the internet during his lunch break. So far, the Hall administration has simply given me the runaround rather than implement any guardrails or restrictions on his access. The same request was met with amazing support by the administration with Smith STEM for my youngest kid. My youngest has already seen a positive shift in their behavior at school with these small adjustments. The impacts of access to addictive platforms on a developing brain are significant. It is linked to increased social isolation, decreased mental health, and a lack of critical thinking skills. Since the introduction of Chromebooks, academic scores across the US have dropped. We are falling behind. The screen-based education that our district has chosen is not serving our future generations. And at the same time, ad revenue during weekdays for Google has increased since Chromebook usage began in schools. The over-reliance on Chromebooks as a babysitter for kids and a lack of hiring of teachers has been detrimental to our kids' development. Often, my oldest will spend an entire period in the cafeteria because there's no substitute teachers available. This feels unacceptable to me. Money is being spent on technology and Chromebooks that should be relocated for our teachers. We're putting more money into big tech companies rather than our local communities. There is no reason our children should have access to AI, social media, or video streaming services while at school. These platforms have been shown to cause more harm than good over and over again. Big tech does not have our kids' best interests in mind. Only the parents and our great teachers do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that's all we have signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to give a public comment? Anyone else who'd like to give public comment? All right. Moving right along. So we're going to hear from our students. Kayla, would you like to go first? Awesome.
Good evening. Here's an update on recent events and upcoming activities at Hall High School. Hall students are currently in the middle of advanced placement exams, which runs from this week into the next. A large number of our students are participating and taking the opportunity to engage in this college-level coursework across a wide range of subjects. Looking ahead, this week is Junior Prom, which takes place on Saturday, May 9th from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Aqua Turf Club in Plantsville. Meanwhile, in the arts, it has been a busy and successful season. Hall's choral program recently held its cabaret performance, and the theater department performed its spring play picnic, which had a fantastic production. Earlier, students participated in the West Hartford Musical Theater Awards, which celebrated theater across the middle and high schools in the district. As we move further into spring sports, senior nights have begun for various teams, such as boys and girls lacrosse, with more celebrations scheduled in the coming weeks. Tomorrow, students from Hall and Conard will be recognized at National Signing Day at the Town Hall. This event celebrates students who are pursuing careers in the trades after graduation, and during the event, the first scholarships from the Elmwood Community Church will be awarded. In addition, Hall recently hosted its Hall Conard First Responders baseball game on April 27th. In this event, Hall represented the West Hartford Police Department, while Conard represented the West Hartford Fire Department. Hall came away with a win, and it was great to honor our first responders. I also want to recognize an important achievement within the Hall community. Our principal, Ms. Isaacs, has been named the 2026 Outstanding First Year Principal by the Connecticut Association of Schools. I've seen firsthand. I've seen firsthand her dedication towards listening to student voice, improving the school culture, and the overall positive impact she's had on our community. Lastly, happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We want to thank all our teachers and educators for the work they do each and every day to support students. We also thank the Hall PTO for helping to recognize and celebrate these dedicated professionals. And thank you.
I was so good. I just had to clap again. Yeah, those updates were awesome, Kayla. Looking forward to hearing yours, Conrad.
Hello, everybody, and happy May. We also want to say good luck to all our students taking AP exams in the next 2 weeks. Your hard work and preparation will pay off as you take this advanced coursework. The Thespians will be holding their inductions and theater awards on May 8th in the Black Box at 6:30. Congratulations to all these amazing actors who are recognized. Junior prom and senior prom are coming up quick in the next few weeks. Junior prom will be on May 15th, while senior prom will be on May 22nd. Celeste and Camerata will hold a concert on May 17th with a performance at 3 at St. James Episcopal Church. The solo choir will hold a performance at 7. Please come out and support our talented musicians and singers. Last Wednesday, Conard welcomed the West Hartford Police Department, West Hartford Fire Department, and AMR for a mock crash demonstration. Thank you to all who participated in this important safety awareness event. I'm also very excited to announce that Unified Theater had their performances last Thursday and Friday. The sense of community was amazing, and so many people came to see our actors. Also, spring sports are right in the middle right now with Conard softball, Conard girls and boys tennis, girls golf, boys baseball, and then boys volleyball, all having games in the next few days. We hope we win all those. Thank you for listening to Conard's updates. Yeah, she got me this time.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all great updates, and I know that y'all must be really excited about coming to the finish line, high school. Yeah, and big plans for the future. So I know we'll get into that later, but yeah, it's great. All right. So next we have unfinished business, revised and new policies, second and final reading. So recommendation, a motion by Miriam Bleich, LaToya Yagaloff, and Jason Gagnon that the Board of Education accept and approve as a second and final reading the following revised and new policies which were reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee. Should I just start with the 4,000 series and then 5, or just go all the way?
It's your call. I was going to combine if we need a refresher. I'm happy to do that if you guys just want to vote. But I would certainly want to at least combine the 4011 and 5691 if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, then I'll just go straight through. Yeah, so Personnel Series 4000, Policy 4011, revised prohibition of sex discrimination, including sex-based harassment. Policy 4085, revised use of social media by employees. Policy 4340, new, reports of suspected abuse or neglect of children or reports of sexual assault of students by school employees. Student Series 5000, Policy 5610, revised, administration of student medications in schools. Policy 5691, revised, prohibition of sex discrimination, including sex-based harassment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
So just a quick overview again for policy 4011 and 5691. That's just updating based on the federal court decision to invalidate the 2024 Title IX. So that'll put us in to update those policies so that we're following them. So I don't know if you want to vote on those two, or do you want me to just keep going?
Question.
So I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. This is just cosmetic type stuff?
Well, it's cosmetic to go back to what was essentially before, where there were some significant changes made for the 2025. Remember that it had to go back to what was previously done. So we did a lot of updating to follow those new guidelines, and now that all got appealed. And, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess motion to vote. And it's on policy 4011, 4085, and 4340?
So I would do 4011 and 5691.
Okay, all right. So all in favor of policy 4011 and 5691? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? All right, motion passes.
So 4,080, if you remember, we looked at just changing some of that to align with what our sort of what's listed online to that. And then really just, again, I think it embodies our role to try to, balance respect for individual expression while also maintaining a safe, focused, and effective learning environment.
And just that's 4,085 under the new numbering.
Yeah, they're all moved, so we just need to vote on them. Yeah, should we do them all separate? Okay, yeah, okay. So, yeah, all those in favor of policy 4085 revised, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
4340, so again, in consultation with Shipman, they told us that we really should have a policy. So we created a personnel version of what we already had, a student one. And so this will mirror what was 5680. It's just now on the personnel side.
All right, all those in favor of policy 4340, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And last but not least, 5610. So this just aligns with some of the changes that were allowing us to use the most appropriate and current medical tools to respond to student emergencies. I also know that at our last meeting, Miriam had asked for clarification, so I wasn't able to get it into the print, but I did hear back from Shipman, and we will make the adjustments. So we'll be able to add, I think it was physician's assistant to, I think it was C1 and C2. So when that gets posted online, that'll be there.
All right, awesome. You want to say, oh, yeah. All right, so all those in favor of 5610, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thanks. Okay, so new business. So we have 2026-2027 budget revision. A recommendation that the Board of Education adopt a revised 2026-2027 budget of $226,156,566 and begin the process of identifying potential reductions in the amount of $700,000 to the previously adopted 2026-2027 Board of Education budget. Is there a motion?
Reluctantly moved.
Second?
Reluctantly seconded.
All right, thanks.
All right, so I will introduce this. So this motion and the intent is to really, as you see how the motion is worded, to really begin a discussion and provide opportunities to address the current need for a $700,000 cut. So just to refresh the board and the public listening at home, at the April 20th meeting of the Town Council, the Board of Education budget was cut by an additional $700,000, bringing the total reduction of the West Hartford budget that you sent forward down by $2,046,755 to a budget of $226,156,566. And the council's hopes were that the Board of Education would be able to accomplish that cut without really increasing class sizes or laying off teachers, which, as I have shared, is something that we agree with, but it is a tall order. What's happened since that time, quite interestingly, is the state has not yet passed, but published information about an increase to educational budget, to the educational cost sharing, roughly in the amount of $170 million that will go to towns and municipalities. And West Hartford would appear to be receiving roughly $2.8 million in supplemental educational aid, as well as an additional $392,000 in municipal aid. That's totally separate from the educational budget. Now, the state's actions are pending approval this week, and then it's going to take some time for our town council to sort things out. But the hope is that we can have some conversations here this evening in the event that we do need to make some cuts, in as much as $700,000. And should that happen, then really the conversations that emerge from this evening would help to inform recommendations that we would put into place onto the May 19th budget and hopefully be able to kind of close the books on next year's budget at that meeting. So that's an introduction as to kind of what's there. And the team is assembled just really between myself and them to be helpful and responsive to any questions. I thoroughly recognize that this is ground that probably none of us necessarily want to walk, and the goals here remain to be able to identify courses of action if we need to take them that make the best out of a difficult situation budget-wise, and certainly understand. I want to give all credit and respect to our town council that have done amazing work to really look at the budget as a whole and to be able to provide the best and most responsible budget that they can to keep taxes down here in the district. So with that introduction, I'll yield the floor back to you and engage in any conversation.
Jason?
So just as kind of I understand, what this recommendation is and what we're doing tonight is really, this is our charge to you and your team to find the best ways to make these cuts and to present us with some options on the 19th. Is that fair?
Absolutely correct.
And then second, just going back to, you mentioned the potential additional state funding. Can you explain how that works, that $2.8 million? Where does that go? Does it come to us? Does it come to the town? Just what are the dynamics there?
Absolutely. So, and in truth, I was having a conversation at there was a meeting today of the Hartford Area Superintendent's Advisory, and many area superintendents were asking that question. I was asking that question. I brought some language from the amended Senate Bill number 1 to look at that specifically to have an understanding, and I've also, done some engagement with Lisa Hammersley of the Connecticut State School Finance Project, and I've had multiple conversations with our town manager in the last 48 hours, and he's talking to council to have that understanding because it presents itself in an interesting way in the statement of the law that makes it difficult. Is this money, when it was originally sort of being talked about by the West Hartford delegation, and I had conversations with them, it was said that this is going to be essentially like the ECS money, educational cost sharing. That money goes directly to the town, and the town would have decision-making authority over how it is made. The language of Substitute Senate Bill 1 provides some ambiguity as to whether or not that is the case, or is this a grant? And when I sort of polled superintendent's understanding of that today in the Hartford area group, I had about half the group that said, yeah, we had the same question. We think that's Board of Ed. And we had about half the group that said, no, that money's going directly to the town. So I think that's part of the reason why we're going to wait until the 19th. There's also some, in truth, if in full transparency, there's a couple of typos in Senate Bill 1. There was something that said the money was going to come into this fiscal year, which is not accurate. The money is actually for next school budget year. The money is not going to be added to anyone's books to try to be spent in the next 2 months. It's going to actually be next year's money. But there are some typos in that Senate bill that need to be fixed before it kind of hits print and becomes law. So. So that's a long-winded way of saying not really sure on that, but gonna get back to you.
What I'm hearing is one way or the other, $2.8 million is coming off of the town's overall budget that includes our budget.
So the town will get 2.8 million. However, the town did already make presumptions about an increase in ECS funding. That was, town stays in close communication with our delegation, and I believe in my last review of their budget, they were anticipating roughly 1.2 million to be coming in. So they are ahead of the game in that regard, but it's not 2.8 million above and beyond. But it's good for the town. At the end of the day, we're all happy that there appears to be some financial relief.
Jen?
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. My question or interest, I guess, is about this $700,000 number. I've heard a lot of discussions, and I'm hoping you can shed some light for me and for others about, why. I guess you can't say why, but like what caused, I guess, this discussion about whether it's the town money or the school money, and there's this $700,000 that like the board borrowed from the town or something, and now we have to give it back. It's kind of like the dialogue that's circulating, and I'm having a hard time explaining it when asked. So I'm hoping you can help me out here a bit.
Absolutely. So in some of the initial conversations, it would certainly appear that the town council was hopeful that they would be able to achieve a reduction in what I had presented as my recommended budget to all of you, roughly in the amount of $2 million. That apparently was kind of the target number that they were looking for. And I know that when we came together and we looked at those reductions, the board identified $1.3 million in cuts, and there was $700,000 remaining. And that $700,000 also is the amount of money that the Board of Education had in excess in the previous year. And that the reason we had such a sizable excess was because, as many of you will recall, very late in the game, just like very late in the game this year, the state legislature is doing amazing things for us. But of course, their calendar and our budget calendar don't align. So very late in the game, budget game for us, the state provided a bailout for districts related to excess cost reimbursement. And that was very fortunate for us. It enabled an end of year surplus. And we had the conversation and made the decision, and in consultation with folks at the town, apprised them of the fact that given all the volatility and all the unknowns with excess cost reimbursement, we wanted to put that money into a non-lapsing account. And a non-lapsing account basically allows boards of education and towns, they have the same thing, to be able to carry money over from one fiscal year to the other. What's new is that boards of education previously didn't have that ability to do that all on their own. They had previously, that had only been a function of the town council or the board of finance, depending on how different districts are set up. But we were able to do that, and certainly we communicated with the town about our intent to do that, and it made good fiscal sense. And then really through the amazing work of Melissa Caballero and the special education team, we've been able to keep kind of a tight lid on our expenses as they relate to out-of-district placement. Her team has done amazing work to bring folks back to the district. And we this year announced very publicly that we anticipated a savings overall. We were anticipating a surplus of roughly $600,000. And we made the prudent financial decision to amortize that savings over a multiple year period in order to lower the Board of Education's budget for the next 3 to 5 years, and dedicated those funds specifically to the risk fund, which relates to the insurance costs, and that's obviously been skyrocketing. Where the difficulty comes into play is that when the town council passed our current year budget last year, it didn't have that $700,000 in it. So that $700,000 was not part of the existing mill rate. And therefore, since we were building our budget sort of with assuming that as a baseline, there was a $700,000 gap in the mill rate in what folks were being taxed that the town was going to have to make up. So that, I think, is where some of the confusion in terms of how people are interpreting, what's been said publicly about it. But that's the explanation as to why the town is saying, they have to make up the difference of that 700,000 in their current year budget in order to, even in order to go forward. It's like anything else. Barb will tell you, anytime you sort of, if you have a one-time money source, and you utilize that money source, for example, this money that we're getting this year, if that money is not assured in the follow-on years, and there's an over-reliance on it for existing operating expenses, then you're good for the year that you're in, but you dig a hole for yourself in the follow-on years, and that's kind of the conversation from the town.
Just a quick follow-up. Thank you for that. I mean, I find it hard to understand how $700,000 is going to impact the mill rate, which we don't have to talk about here, but I just feel like I need to say that in public. And I guess it doesn't really matter, but there seems to be like some sort of discussion of like whether it's the town's money or the Board of Ed's money, and I guess I struggle with that a bit since we're all trying to row in the same direction here, and reopening a budget discussion is always challenging. So I feel the need to point that out. That being said, I also just want to support Jason's comments about you guys coming to us with ideas. I think it's very hard, especially as my first not even year yet, picking what I would want to cut, which I think my kids would choose more recess. If that's any cost savings, I promised them I would share that this evening. So beyond that, though, I no other ideas.
No, I appreciate that, and to both of your comments, I want to make sure I give them. I equally struggle. We're in a really strange and difficult place, having a conversation about cuts, about potential cuts, and I'll phrase them that way, optimistically, that they're potential cuts, given the fact that there's this, we've been set onto this path going back into April, and the information that we have today paints a very different financial picture, and we're in an unknown spot because while the money is certainly out there and being talked about for those purposes, at the same time, there's been significant shifts and moves across the board, and I certainly understand the concept of finding a way. It's one town, one collective effort, but we're not sure. And the town council hasn't even had the opportunity to weigh in as to what any of this looks like. So it is we're I don't know, skating on ice, blindfolded in the dark at the moment. But understanding that the charge is, should there be a need for us to make additional cuts, where do we think? What are the priorities of the Board of Education relative to making those difficult decisions that we thoroughly understand are not things that we either recommend nor necessarily want?
I'll yield to Ethan. Couple questions, just so I'm clear. The state legislature, my understanding from the news, ends tomorrow?
Yeah, by the end of this week, I believe the governor will vote on it.
Okay.
Liz,
I thought it was
Barb can
tomorrow.
probably.
Yeah, session ends tomorrow.
So we'll know by tomorrow, I assume?
No, just this legislative session will be done, and then more information, an analysis will be forthcoming.
Well, after the legislature votes on it, the governor has to sign it before it becomes law.
No, I understand, but
Oh.
he has to have a law to sign.
Right, so tomorrow midnight it ends,
Okay.
theoretically, unless they go into special session.
So the question I had, or I'm a little confused about, is there was a $700,000 gap by the town council for us. there's $1.2 million or $2.8 million of available funding from the state. We don't know how the town council is going to use that, or do we know?
No, we don't know yet. They haven't had the opportunity for any public discussion about it.
Okay, but do we know when they'll decide?
So in my conversations with the town manager, we've talked about trying to have enough information for this Board of Education to make decisions on May 19th.
Okay. So either A, we need to come up with $700,000 of costs, or B, the $700,000 is covered by the state funding, but we don't know that yet.
Correct. Or C, there's, we have to come up with less than 700,000, but still something. It's, there are many possibilities. So it is.
So assuming that there's money available, is it possible to have more money put into the lapsing fund again? Because they're going to have the problem next year.
Yes, whether that's on the town side or the board side, there are many possibilities at this point.
But right now, we're in limbo, so to speak.
Correct.
I want on the record that Ethan just advocated for the town giving us more money to put in lapsing.
No, I'm trying to figure out where it's going.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
That's fine. No, it's.
I second that motion.
It's fine. No, I'm just trying to understand. So is it worth discussing savings if we don't know what's going on?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and these have been a lot of conversations. In fact, I had this conversation, with your board chair Shannon, with the town manager. I think there's a responsibility for us, if we're faced with having to make that decision, that we understand, not knowing, but if we're faced with that, I think it's important for us to have a good understanding of what priorities might be if we need to go down that road, and not necessarily that we need to have 100% granularity with that, but sort of what are the feelings of the board if we're there, because if we need to make some cuts or all of the cut, we would want to be able to begin the process to have the public discussion about it, so that we're not, number one, so that it's not going to happen in the dark, too quickly on May 19th. And May 19th is a date that I continue to target. There isn't necessarily a statutory requirement that we make that, but you really only, aside from calling a special meeting, which we could do, there's only one board meeting after that. And if we were put into a position to have to make a cut, and if those cuts involved people, we would want to ensure that we're providing people with fair notice and the opportunity, if it came to that. Because
well, I think you'd also don't want to hire people if you're going to have to come in with this issue. So I assume you have openings just because of the end of the year.
Correct. And we look at those when we're facing this pretty much at the end of every year, and based on where the budget is, we look at our hiring prospects. In some areas, we may institute a hiring freeze, where then other areas such as critical areas of shortage, the sciences is one, special education is one, some other areas, we green light hiring because we know that number one, there's not the same depth of candidates, and number two, we also look at, hey, we expect that this position is going to be a priority, whether that's the area itself or given the number of vacancies that we might have in a particular area.
Okay, because my comment was going to be, if there is a possibility, whether significant or small, we should start the work now, because you don't want to be turning on a dime.
Exactly, which is exactly why we wanted to have this conversation tonight, even though we're in limbo.
And then the other comment was going to be, for future, does it make sense, and I think the town council has control of this, but to come up with different dates for having the budget approved, because obviously March is too soon, at least, because this is the second year in a row.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think we've had a couple of unique circumstances related to the state budget and its impact on town budgets. But what's very interesting is that West Hartford is one of the latest boards of education to adopt. And let me tell you that everyone's in this boat. So at this Hartford area superintendent's group, every person I spoke to, they were in some form of a referendum or a special vote, like they're used to being done in February.
It just seems like we can't make decisions because.
No, and you're absolutely right. And tonight is not intended for any decision-making. It's really discussion to get a sense of potential areas for investigation, what questions you have that we can potentially bring back between meetings or certainly at the May 19 meeting.
Well, for speaking for myself, I'd like to know if there's possibilities from people leaving that we can avoid, or we have another person to replace them, or we don't have to go out and hire somebody. Where if you got to have.
So essentially, if there's a person who's left to kind of hold a position.
If we can. I mean, to your point, there's going to be certain things like the sciences you can't, but there's hopefully others like.
Yeah,
areas of sport.
and I do believe, from some conversations, I think there are places where we can look at that. So we'll definitely jot that down as a place where, hey, I'm aware of a certain retirement. What would it mean in that position? Classroom positions, obviously, that's not usually a way that we can go, but positions away from the classroom where there's a retirement, can we divide and conquer differently?
Right. But I just think, again, speaking for myself, the sooner we start on it, the better, because you don't want to be scrambling at the last.
Understood. No, and so that's definitely an area that we can look at, and in truth, we have looked at a little bit, but we can look even more deeply and say, here are some areas where there are positions that are away from a classroom where we've seen a retirement, and maybe how do we do without a position? So that is definitely one we'll write down and make sure that we can speak to and talk more about it if you have specific questions. But
and then the other thing I'd say is if there's additional money beyond the 700,000, I'd put it into lapsing for next year.
Understood. And as of right now, I know that prior to this announcement, we had a plan for our excess. We're reevaluating that plan. That's also something that we can do. We can ask the board to, rather you voted to amortize that money and put it towards future years. If we had to do a cut, that would be an area that we could talk about where we could pull back on that. No, and it's a question of, would we have extra money if money came to us, or would the town have extra money to where we could, potentially look at, hey, we don't have to worry about that as much because we know the town has a non-lapsing. So, that's an excellent point.
Are there other reserve accounts or accrued accounts that might have extra?
So what we did was we took the planned excess that we were looking at, and we had amortized it into the risk fund. So that's one area that we are going to look.
But I'm wondering if there's other reserves.
I could.
There are other reserves, but they're niche to how the money was originally generated.
Yeah.
So the non-lapsing fund is our broad-reaching reserve.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Sure. So I just wanted to follow up on really just 2 points. First off is in terms of priorities and areas we have to make the cut, I think we're all united, and I would just join in with wanting to avoid any possible impact in the classroom, any possible impact on the students. And I trust that all of you are on the same page with us, and I also trust that all of you have more granular knowledge in terms of where those cuts could possibly be made than we would have sitting on our side of the table. So we would certainly be relying upon all of you to show us the best possible way and come up with the best possible recommendations to make that happen. The other point would be on the non-lapsing fund. I heard an analogy, and I think it's sort of circulating out there, probably on the non-Board of Ed side, and I know it's been out there in the community that the non-lapsing that we are treating the non-lapsing fund as if it's part of our budget. The analogy that was used was that of a child's allowance. So if a child receives an allowance from their parent on week 1 of $10 and manages to save 5 of it, they now have $15. The child goes to the parent, the child saves 5 of it, they spend 5. Next week, they get 10, they don't spend it, so now they have $15 in the bank. Week 3, the child goes to the parent and asks for $15. And the perception is out there is that we're asking for $15 rather than the 10 we're supposed to get. So, which would mean that the non-lapsing fund lives within our budget as opposed to outside of our budget. So I was just wondering if you could provide a little bit more clarity on that, recognizing that my explanation of the analogy may not have been the best, but it's the idea, really the question is, where does this money live and how does it relate to our budget, and are we using it to inflate our budget?
No, it's a fair question. I'll start, and I'll let Barb correct anything I say incorrectly. And I enjoyed your analogy, but I'm going to keep as far away from it as possible.
And that's a fair response. I'm just relaying what I've been told, and I think it is important to set the public record straight as to what this money is and where it lives.
Absolutely. So, so the $700,000 existed in last year's budget, and of course, it's a responsibility of the Board of Education to have a clean closing of the books year over year. But the state of Connecticut did have did make the decision and look at how boards of education operate to provide for an opportunity through a non-lapsing fund for boards of education to, if they have a surplus, to carry that money over into the next year. And that's what we did. And then that vote was to take the money from the non-lapsing fund and to incorporate it into the Board of Education's budget. And the board did that. And legally speaking, that money then became in our budget. It was your money. It was in your budget. And that is all above board and exactly what it was. With the intent that we expected we would have costs related to out-of-district tuition, and the ability to carry that money over would certainly be a benefit, to be able to help reduce the budget. As we then look forward to this budget cycle, our analysis demonstrated that we thought that we would need, in a maintenance budget where we maintained pretty much the same service, had very modest, minor adjustments to the budget, that we would need what we had. So it's not a question of, in that and I will go to your analogy, it's not a question just for anyone in the public, whoever the people in the public are that might have made that analogy, I'm certain with all of the best of intentions. It's not sort of a childlike demand for something that is not necessarily deserves. It's a fiscal analysis of what we thought that we would need, and the idea being we felt that we would need that 700,000 plus everything else, plus the additions that we provided to the budget, which I understand were, when you account for that 700,000 and you account, it was in the neighborhood of 6.5%. That we had originally put forward, and we talked about the reasons for that. That's our analysis of what was necessary. And the good news was, at the end of the day, elements of that analysis, specifically the insurance, came down by a healthy percentage. Workman's comp came down by a fair amount. And we made other adjustments in light of the financial situation existing in town to reduce the overall budget. But it's not a, where it comes into a point of friction, which is thoroughly understandable, and I acknowledge, is that the town hadn't been counting on that 700. So when they have to set a mill rate, and they have to, the mill rate and all of the work that goes into what the actual tax increase is going to be, then needs to take into account that 700,000 in addition to our increases. So they're starting, from a lower floor, because the floor that, when we did a roll forward, the floor that we were starting from in our analysis had included that already. That's the only disconnect. It's not as big a disconnect, I think, as, in terms of like when you really step back and think about it, it makes total sense, but I think people are making more of it, especially if they're using, and if they're sharing analogies like that with you, that, I don't know, I'm not sure how to take that, but.
And I certainly don't think that anybody would suggest that we or our students don't deserve that money. I think it's more that there is a question out there about where this lives, and I think also I think on the government side, customarily the idea is you spend what you get. And having the availability of a non-lapsing fund rewards good management. So, and I think that's important to emphasize, that if we're efficient, we can, if we're efficient, we can fill that non-lapsing fund and leave ourselves a cushion for future years.
Yes, 100%. And I think it's the size. I think it was a sizable. It was a sizable appropriation of funds that came through that excess cost reimbursement. And I think if the Board of Education, has a surplus in any given year, that's 100,000, a little bit this or that, and there's a discussion with the town to roll that over to help smooth things out for the board in the future year, I think that's all fine and good. I think the reason there's concern with it is because it is a sizable dollar value at the end of the day, so that it's a fair amount when you have to look at the big picture of what a tax increase is going to be to be able to make up. So I'll approach that discussion point and any potential friction that lives out there in the community, through hopefully a more, I'm trying to look at it in a reasonable way and understand where we're coming from, where they're coming from, and I get it. I guess that's the best way for me to say it.
Well, thank you for that.
Miriam?
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to continue the conversation, especially in light of the recent financial developments. I do want to express my concern that, especially for my colleagues and I who we just started here, the budget issue, the situation with the district numbers and the state contributions has been a challenge for years, and I anticipate that it will continue to be a serious challenge that we have to navigate, going forward. So I guess my concern is really ensuring that and looking at and asking for the district, again, as I've mentioned before, to look at the process for efficiency, to look at, how are we looking at every department to make sure that we're assessing not just output, but impact on student achievement. What's our process for looking at efficiencies, all the way from admin role, staffing, staff who don't have touch point with students, all the way across the district. So I think this going forward is going to help us as we then discuss priorities and make big picture recommendations as well. And then I also want to say that when asked for suggestions, I'd like to raise the concerns that many parents have expressed to our community, which around tech use. And so I think this is an area that I had also addressed when we had line item conversation about the budget. And so this is an area that I would like to pursue. I think it would be helpful for us. I think the evidence is overwhelming. And so I would like to know, as I asked previously, again, about non-mandatory tech spending, not purchasing new Chromebooks and one-to-one devices, looking at reducing bandwidth. As we know, the cell phone ban is currently, I think it's in the Senate. I don't know if it was passed yet, but
It seems that it's coming.
okay. So we'll see how that goes. But again, I would say we don't have to wait for the legislature to be making these decisions. The evidence is out there. Other districts in Connecticut have made many recommendations about tech use based on all the evidence and concerns about how it's negatively affecting students' mental health, their academic achievements. So I think looking at how we are spending on technology, including apps. So iReady and IXL, for example, have class action lawsuits against them, concerns about data and data breaches. So there's a lot to really unpack and look at where the district is spending money related to tech use. And so I would like to raise this as a concern, as a line item for some very serious consideration. Relatedly, too, I'd also like to bring up for my colleagues that perhaps we consider on the same subject a resolution, again, to be discussed when Shannon's back in greater detail at the next meeting, perhaps, about what our priorities would be around tech use in the district, including ed tech opt-out, the band for personal use. I mean, there are also like fiscal benefits, I would say, or savings perhaps, for addressing all the tech as well. So I want to raise that, share this thought with colleagues. Certainly we can discuss more in detail.
Just on that point, you stole some thunder because that was going to be a request for a future agenda
Oh,
item
okay, great.
to give the district more guidance on what we're looking for in
Terrific.
terms of screen times and things like that.
Terrific, exactly. So thank you.
Yeah, so if I may, because you said a lot of good stuff, a lot of important things, and I want to unpack a couple of things. First and foremost, relative to kind of the analysis, the efficiencies, the big picture look at the budget as I understand it, 100%. And I would want you to know it's something that we do every year. It's something that we've done year over year. What's interesting about as those of you that are brand new to the board this year, you're coming on at a time, I think, where you did not see a dramatic amount of recommended adjustments to the budget. So I can appreciate and understand if there are questions, hey, you know, how deep is that look? What do you know, I don't see a lot of change. The previous 2 years, when you go back, it was in the neighborhood of a total of 40 positions or more. We had come out of ESSER, we stripped ourselves of a lot of ESSER positions, and then in the following year, another 20 positions, and a number of other adjustments. So there have been, you know, so I would want you to know and have confidence in the fact that there is a very deep analysis that goes on year over year to find efficiencies, and you know, we have gotten to a point, because we've done very well with that in terms of our analysis, to find lots of efficiencies that you know, now we're getting to the point where, you know, cuts start to hit bone. So we have to be cautious. Now, obviously, year over year, there are always changes that occur. You know, what drives our expenditures are our people. What drives our staffing levels, our people, are our enrollments. And our enrollments are going to be generally flat, but we have interesting and different things that have happened. We had a change to start age for elementary, which had an impact in terms of the staffing at that level. We had that non-funded mandate to have students who are in our post-secondary program educated through, not just until their 22nd birthday, but through the school year of their 22nd birthday. That created an impact on our staffing. All of these things, you know, come out of different legislature, and we react to them, and we react always, obviously, in the best interests of our students. But that's, you know, I would just say we do that, we'll continue to do that, and you'll see different things. I know one of the criticisms that's come out through the budgeting process is, oh, you know, you've got a lot of administrators, you're administrator heavy, you got all these elementary assistant principals. So that was enacted for the 24-25 budget. That was a change of positions. It was 11 bodies that were already there that were not administrators that were transferred to administration. That happened in trade with a net decrease of 2.1 positions and a net impact to the budget of a savings of $48,000. So year over year, we're in year 2 of that. We've saved with the wage increases over $100,000 by virtue of doing that. So as people talk about, the incredible add you made to the budget, it's sort of a misinformed criticism that no, we've saved $100,000 in 2 years by virtue of making that change, because it enabled us to make an entire administrative restructure to how we supervise at the elementary level, how we work on special education. It's improved the strength of our special education programming. So overall, it's been a huge win. You talked about the ed tech use, and you know, I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, because I know that it's a topic of great interest in not just the district, but I think, as folks are saying, it's kind of in the larger community in the United States. And I would agree. And we have already begun, Ann's office and others have already begun a look at, you know, what is our ed tech usage and what does it look like? I want to be sure, though, at the end of the day, that we don't take something that is a curricular issue and turn it into an operational issue, which is to say, you know, there's a lot of talk about we should just stop buying Chromebooks altogether. which would be like saying we should just stop paying the light bill and hope that magically the power is going to stay on for our needs relative to state testing, because we need a fleet of Chromebooks in order to accomplish that operationally. There was an email that came in to my office today that suggested the Board of Education cut the CNRE budget, which the Board of Education does not have any ownership over the CNRE budget, and the CNRE budget has already been dramatically cut by the town, and the funding that's going into the CNRE budget is not just for Chromebooks, it's for a lot of other things. Our priorities in educational spending, in technology spending as a Board of Education coming up have probably less to do with Chromebooks and more to do with our security structure, the ability, as you're talking about data privacy, it's our ability to guard against those things. We are in need of updating our infrastructure so that we're not going to fall prey to attacks. But that said, the other thing that was talked about in this email, and you mentioned one-to-one. I know that we talked as we're investigating and exploring the potential for one-to-one at the high school. And in an email that I just read from a community member, the thought was, and I understand the thought's a logical thought, hey, one-to-one is going to increase your number of devices. Well, in actuality, if we went to one-to-one at the high school, we'd be able to decrease our number of devices. We'd be able to decrease the number of Chromebooks that we would need to buy, because the way that you outfit high schools, where we're talking about it, is you outfit high schools so that you can have carts available in classrooms in an ideal world, in every classroom, but we don't do that, but in a majority of classrooms. Carts, you need to have a greater number. You need to have for the potential largest class that you might have in a given year, and you need to obviously have a few extras and spares. So that's where I think we talked about it during the budget process. Why do we have more Chromebooks than necessarily enrollment? And the answer to that is twofold. Number one, a lot of our Chromebook purchases, were made. We're keeping these devices for over 10 years. And our enrollment has been decreasing. So a lot of our stock, we have more because we bought them several years back. The second answer is because as you outfit carts, you might have a class enrollment at 20, 21, but you have 25 or 27 because that's the class size guideline for a high school. You have that many devices available in the cart. If we go one-to-one, we can, at the high school, we can decrease our number of devices. So it's something that we're exploring. But at the end of the day, we do plan relative to a future agenda item, and I would ask that you let us lean on that word future agenda item as opposed to immediate agenda item. Allow for Ann and the team to really conduct the review, the recommendations. There's no hesitation from us in terms of we understand, and I wouldn't even say it's the charge from the board or the charge from the community, because it's our charge. It's a shared charge. We're trying to reduce the amount of screen time. We recognize that when we were in COVID and we had to put everybody onto a computer and a device, the pendulum swung all the way over to one side. And we're trying to get back to the correct, I won't call it middle ground, we're just trying to get back to the correct temperature and level setting for what device usage needs to be. So we're on that mission already. We would like to make it transparent, but we need to do our homework, and we need to inform the board with kind of where things are and where we intend them to go, and then get that feedback and share it with the community as well. So.
Thank you, that's helpful. And just to clarify then, would we still be able to see how technology spending is kind of, or non-mandatory spending is still kind of itemized in the district? So looking at not apps that are fun, but not maybe curricular necessities, what a change in bandwidth would look like, all the things related to tech. I don't think you need me to list them all
No,
right
yeah,
now,
absolutely.
but big picture again, like
Yeah.
licenses and softwares, replacements, because I guess one of the concerns or one of the pieces of conversation, which I hope would be, again, for future, again, is looking at device usage in pre-K through, let's say, second grade. So if you're gonna, I don't know what the term is, upcycle, technology devices, then potentially you're saving money by not having to purchase more. You're able to extend the life if you're moving some up. So all of these things I hope and look forward to continued conversation. So I just wanted to add that. And also, so it sounds like this is an ed tech audit, perhaps?
Yes, so short
Okay.
answer, yes, we're
Great.
engaged in it. and
Great.
I don't know if
Do you have a
guys
time
anything to add?
frame also? Do you have a time frame for when you think
You
we
wanna
would
talk
have more
about first
information?
steps?
Hi, everyone.
Thank
Yes,
you.
we spoke with our principals at our last principal meeting about the launching of, you might call it an ed tech diet or some type of a review. We talked to them about thinking about the things they see around school that they might say, I wonder about that usage, if that's a high efficiency usage, or if that is something that could be, lessened or eliminated. So the principals were thoughtful, just very informally talking about things that they think are highly valuable that involve ed tech, and things that they could wonder about that is that the best use. So we have them thinking about it. We talked about people volunteering, and they've written to me who would like to serve on a committee, starting with some type of real assessment of where are we. Barb was very helpful to me, and she gave me a listing of some as Paul said, during COVID, there was an explosion of these kinds of programs so that kids could engage from really home, their bedroom, like really far distant places from us. And the district had cut out many of the bigger platforms in one particularly called Nearpod that we had bought district-wide. We had eliminated that at least 3 years ago now. But, people get used to them. And so they might be buying them at the school level. So we were looking at, Barb helped me find some material that will help this committee come together and look not only at what they see in the day that they term as highly valuable, questionable, I don't think there's value, and then we'll have some resources to look at. And I said to them, I don't think we should immediately start swinging pendulums left or right very quickly. I think we should really look at what we have and make some informed decisions. I'd like to get that started, but obviously getting through this year and some of the major initiatives we've had. But I do see that coming together with the interested people this summer, and really starting to get lists of what we have, because it's something that can get away very quickly from you. So I've had principals write, and they're interested in joining up with us and reviewing, and so that we can make some good decisions.
Yeah, and they're practice things that we'll, be able to do and talk about that we can do, very quickly. One of the things that came up, I know people spoke about the use of screen time as a reward. Our principals talked about that. There didn't seem to be a lot of love in the room for that practice. So changing that practice, and that's where I say there are curricular issues, things that we can change very easily. Then there are operational things, fiscal things, budget things. It doesn't cost me nor does it save me anything to make a change over here. So I don't want to conflate these two issues. And I do want to, I've got the team behind me. I've got the charge. So I need the time to work with the leadership and to as Ann is saying, make sure that we're, providing our teachers with a clear set of expectations that they can operate around, because at the end of the day, it's never, excellent, amazing educators who have to be able to interpret and make kind of on the ground, in their own world decisions on things. It's not as simple as any kind of a black and white policy that says X, Y, or Z. So we want to make sure that we have the correct approach. And you want to add?
I just wanted to add also that some of the speakers who've come up asked to meet with me this summer. So I've already been scheduling. I don't know, Kristen helps me schedule meetings, but Kristen is on it with the group. And there's another group in town. They're the group that was really a lot of folks. Irene Garneau was helping with this from Charter Oak and early our pre-K program, a lot of parents talking about how helping parents too to keep, make good decisions about when they're giving children screens. So I thought those two groups could, they both have the same goal in mind, right? They're coming from different angles, one looking at the home use and one looking at the school. So we are making efforts to connect with those parents and have a meeting either late this school year or early in the summer to hear their, particular input as we put it together.
So, and one of the things you mentioned was things getting away from us a little bit on the tech side. And, one of the things I've heard happening is you have students who have the ability to disable whatever, blockers or, whatever blocking devices or blocking software are installed on the district computers. And I was wondering if there's been any kind of broader attempt to address that. And I know we're hesitant to do things that are more disciplinary, but to the extent that that's a student infraction or students violating the rules and making unauthorized modifications to the devices, and then of course accessing stuff that is going beyond what we want them to be doing on school time. I was wondering if there's been any efforts on the ground to address that.
Well, that's a great question, Jonathan, because there you can YouTube anything these days, and you can find Paul and I looked it up ourselves, because we looked at should there be certain kinds of software, but that help with that. But the other side of that is you could quickly look up a video to get around that software. So you want to use your money well, right? You don't want to buy something that you think is saving you. So that we are aware of it. We work with Jared Moore on that issue. He is, full-time. I know I look like a tech person, but I'm not. We work with Jared's department on that to find out, and they have good tracking devices to see if things have been gotten around. And then we apply the student code of conduct using appropriate technology use, which we have it's in the student's handbook and that they read. So it is addressed whenever found. And but you're absolutely right to say there's lots of information on how to get around the blockers. And I don't know, Paul, when you were talking about our infrastructure, if that's some of the security you're talking about.
I was going to say that, my opinion on the subject is that the best defense is good old-fashioned monitoring, and then of course thoughtful, if design of a lesson in terms of if you're going to be asking for this usage in the first place. So number one, if we're cutting back on the real need, is it a real need to utilize the technology, which I think is the bigger question. It's the curricular question. Can I accomplish the same instructional goal without the technology? Then I wouldn't need to have the device out in the first place. Number two, if I do need it, then I need to have a thoughtful way. Just let me walk the room. Let me look on screen. It goes to, Miriam brought up the cell phone ban. So as you all know, there's already a ban on cell phones in elementary and middle school. So this really impacts only the high schools. And I'm not, I talked about, I'm not looking to expend money to buy, the pouches, the Yonder pouches or whatever, to implement this. We actually have a very effective system working right now where we ask students to have their devices off and away. Now we will ask them to essentially extend that throughout the entirety of the school day. And the only place that will really need to have any increased effort or monitoring are the places where they had previously been allowed, which would have been the cafeteria or would have been, say, a study hall. So is it going to create friction and issues in a study hall? Yes, it is. Is it going to create referrals? I'm certain. Does it qualify for the expense of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 so that I can better monitor a study hall? I professionally don't think so.
Is another tech question?
I was just going to say, I know we need to get to the budget
That's
tonight.
literally what I was going to say.
Lots of tech thoughts. I completely
Right.
agree. I'm thrilled we're going to talk about it later on the agenda.
Yeah.
But I am looking to
Yeah.
get our business of the evening done.
Yeah, you read my mind, Jen. I was going to say, this is a conversation for a future date. But thanks for all the insight, and I also hope that when we have this conversation later, that we also include the voices of our students. So, any other budget? Go ahead, Ethan.
So, assuming we're not able to use the 700 or the 1.2 or the 2.8, is it possible to have like a workshop before the 19th so we know what's coming before it comes?
Yeah, if we need a workshop, my hope is to, my hope is kind of this is informally workshopping it tonight so that we know and get some direction in. So the direction I'm getting right now, I definitely heard, positions that that'll be vacant at the end of the year. Do the analysis, are those things that we can redistribute? And that's something, and, we are aware of some. I'm hearing, and we're already doing like the more in-depth analysis, what are some other things? I'm hearing, infrastructure, technology, look for that. I'll offer, we're also looking at, this is just part of what we do in general, something that we always do with the budget. We look at we look at the enrollment. Is there any change to the enrollment from what had been out there? And I had Barbary run our enrollment projections just to see if there has been any change. There are a couple of areas. So we may bring some recommendations based on an updated analysis of enrollment. Do we think that we can potentially shave some positions here or there? So that's a piece that we'll generally do. I mentioned the risk fund. You guys kind of talked about that briefly as an area away. So these are the ideas that I'm hearing right now. They're ideas that we already have as well, some new areas, or at least you're giving me sort of an appreciation and understanding for what might be priorities, but happy to hear more.
And I just want to make sure we can discuss before.
I think some of the hesitancy you're kind of getting from us in terms of just throwing things out there, to be quite frank, is I don't think we're in a position to say, pull on this string and know what the effects of that downstream are. So I think we really are looking for, knowing the guidance that you have from us, from the town council about where, their mind was when they made this cut, is I think you're going to need to come to us. And quite frankly, I think it may be that March 19th doesn't make sense as May 19th doesn't make sense as a voting day if we're going to have substantive changes, because I think the public is going to need a chance to weigh in. So we may need to alter that timeline.
No, understood, absolutely. And that's where, and thoroughly respect and appreciate, there might not be that one thing that you hoped for last time that that you're hoping for now. I get it in terms of what does that mean. But general guidance relative to, I'll make the broad assumptions. Like the town council said, we really hope we don't want to lay anybody off, and we don't want to have dramatic impact to class sizes. Looking to hear from you. I haven't heard it. I saw public come out in droves. Always concerned about programmatic cuts. We don't want to cut program. We don't want to. So anything. In and along those lines that helps us to prioritize. Those have been my priorities. My priorities, I said from the get-go, and I believe it was pretty much echoed by the Board of Education that those are your interests as well. I'm not looking to change what we do, what we're known for, and so just sort of wanting to make sure that I'm getting feedback from you guys around what are the things, even if it's not what you want to cut, but maybe the things you want to ensure that you preserve.
Sure. I think if you go back to a lot of the statements that we made when we were voting on the budget about kind of how we came to it and what we thought about it, I think a lot of it was preserving, and one of the reasons we agreed, at least in majority, to send a budget that was higher than we knew the town wanted, was to preserve those programs, those things that make West Hartford. So I feel like we're going to be in the same boat, but again, yes, it's the class sizes we heard so much about, right? Ensuring that there's no impact on the front and center, the interactions with the kids, but it is those programmatic pieces, I would imagine. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but certainly for me, it would be, right? The music, the arts, all those places that we excel. I mean, sports, where all the words we get there, the unified sports. So, to the extent that we can keep what makes us special intact, I think that's the charge as well.
I would agree with that. I think the other challenge is like this $700,000 feels very wrapped up in some sort of financial drama or something that feels kind of irrelevant, to be very honest. To me, that's a frustration. It feels, I'm not sure what exactly we're doing here, but if we do have to find this magical $700,000 number, I agree that, my wish would be for, students to be impacted the least, and the amazing programs that we have here to remain in place. I know there's a lot of discussion around like admin and things like that, as you addressed earlier, and I appreciate that. And at the same time, I know how valuable all those folks are to making the trains run on time, and that all builds. So I just want those folks to know that we see you too, and all that you do. So yeah, it's a tall order for you to deliver this, but certainly I'm certainly in line with how Jason described it.
One area that I know we're exploring is kind of changing how the counseling model is done, and maybe going out with an RFP so that agency might come in, and then they can get, insurance can cover that and get billed, and so it's kind of, the cost is not falling on the school system. I don't know if there's anything we do in the interim that can help kind of pave that way to get that set up that is a cost savings to us. I know a number of years ago, or at least a couple budgets back, we did vote to save. I think the 3 ESSER funds that exist on are ones that we saved in the counseling realm. I don't know if there's anything there, if we have this on the horizon where we're going to be bringing in additional resources or different resources, if there's a way to start saving there as we pave the way for that.
No, that's an absolutely fair question. So we do have a partnership right now with the Bridge, where they come in and they provide clinical services at both the middle school and the high school. Right, Melissa? Previously, had been with Hartford Healthcare at the high school, and the Bridge has taken that over. And that's in addition to, we are mandated to provide clinical service, to provide school psychologists, social work support as part of IEPs, but it's kind of like a release valve, and it's great for the Bridge. It's great for our students and our community because it's kind of point of contact need through insurance billing. And we have talked about, there's the opportunity if there had been budgets in the past when ESSER went away where we were looking to reduce those 3 positions. There was a lot of feedback, a lot of board discussion. And we were able to, we originally had 5 positions under ESSER. We were able to maintain 3 of them. If we were to look to make any changes there, the hope would be to be able to provide some backfill, possibly with a model like we have with the Bridge, to be able to provide some supports. I know, it's a discussion point. Would we look at 1 position, 2 positions based on, hey, making sure that we could still provide supports and services, because those folks are doing amazing things. But, as was said, we look, are there any retirements? Are there any folks that are leaving? Would there be a position, even if we changed it? Could we adjust how those services are provided? That's an area for us to certainly explore, and something that we can bring back. But I do want to, in saying that, I would want to make sure that I could find that backfill, because I know that the work that those folks are doing is pretty amazing relative to the Tier 1 support that they're able to provide. But it could be an area, if there's an anticipated opening, where we wouldn't lose any staff, and we can look to bring in a service to, at a lower impact school.
Anything else? Questions, comments? All right, so we are going to be connecting about this again May 19th, or maybe sooner. Yeah, that's a lot. So more new business. The ratification of the West Hartford Board of Education Local 1303-340 of Council for AFSCME AFL-CIO. Recommendation that the Board of Education ratify the negotiated agreement between the security guard employees and the Board of Education for the period of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2030.
Move ratification.
Second.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, LaToya. I know that was a mouthful, so we'll refer to them as our security guards. We are looking to ratify a 4-year contract. To give you a little bit of context, we have 22 security guards that work in our schools and programs across the district. Often, not always, but often they're retired police officers or have experience in the police force. We want to publicly acknowledge and thank them for all that they do each and every day to keep our buildings safe. And also, beyond a safety issue, they also are so ingrained in their school communities. I know every time we go into a school, one of the first people we see are the security guards. They're in the hallways, they're out at recess duty, they're greeting people when they come in. They're interacting with students. They're present at evening events, sports events. They really are such an important part of our structure and what we do. So we thank them for that. I'll just go through some of the highlights of the agreement and then happy to answer any questions that you have. So the 4-year salary increases, the first year would be step movement and a 3% wage increase, followed by a 2.75% increase, 3%, and then 2.5%. You can see the longevity payments. Those are a once yearly stipend based on years of service. Looking at the insurance cost shares, the first year the employees would contribute 21.75%, followed by 22%. 22.25 and 22.5. And then also that pension contribution, you could see goes from 6.75 to 7 to 7.25 to 7.5%. Any questions with any of that?
Thank you. Just to clarify, is this the same as an SRO, or is this different?
No, different. So our SROs are actual West Hartford police officers. So you'll see them, they're in West Hartford police uniforms. These folks are in our West Hartford Public Schools uniforms.
And the SROs, just to be clear, are paid, their salary is paid by the West Hartford Police Department. And we are so thankful for the collaboration that we have in terms of them stationing people in our schools.
Great. Very grateful to have both.
This is just for my own education. How many are in the high school, middle school, and elementary?
I believe the high schools each have 4 guards. The 2 larger middle schools have 4. And then there are 4 shared between the 11 elementary schools. There's also 1 guard at Bristow and 1 guard at Strive.
Okay. And there's 20 security guards? 22. Okay, thank you.
I'm interested now. So, I guess I'm intrigued to know, why don't all of the elementary schools have security folks?
As long as we don't breach too much. I mean, I think the shared use of security staff, without getting into specific hours, days, or assignments or anything like that, it's not an uncommon practice. We're a pretty big district. I would tell you that the personnel needed necessary at the high schools, certainly equates to that number. Our elementary schools, I would, in addition to our school security personnel, we have community resource officers that kind of do sweeps. So we work with the West Hartford PD so that we know the schedule, so that we can ensure that all the schools themselves are secure. But in terms of having a dedicated individual at each one of the schools, it would, there's a cost to it, and I think there's that would be the most that I would say. It certainly would be, something that would be very, very beneficial and nice to have, but we haven't incurred that expense.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how I feel about security guards at school and if it is better or not better. I feel like we've seen lots of national reports about that, but it's just intriguing. So thank you.
All right, so we are voting, right? Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Yeah. So next, we're going to have our superintendent's report.
So thank you so much, and welcome to May. Happy Cinco de Mayo. May we celebrate many, many things, not the least of which is Jewish American Heritage Month, as well as Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we look forward to May 23rd, during which educators in Connecticut and Connecticut as a community celebrates Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Awareness. I also want to obviously acknowledge in May that it's coming up, in fact, coming up this weekend, Mother's Day. So a happy Mother's Day out there to all of our moms. Our collective appreciation cannot be overstated. Lots to celebrate. I believe Unified Theater was already mentioned by Conrad, but we also had Unified Sports. In late April, Conard High School hosted Unified Sports Celebration. It brought together students with intellectual disabilities and their non-disabled peers from across all of our program schools. It's always a heartwarming observation of the teamwork, the friendships, and the reflection of our diversity and our unity. I want to throw a shout out to the Quest program and to Director Mary Thompson. There was a middle school Quest fair that was held a couple of weeks ago. I think it was right after the Board of Education meeting, maybe on the 22nd. And it was a packed house. You couldn't park. And students were up there, middle schoolers. They were confident, they were engaging, they were providing information about their passion projects. And on the heels of that event, then there was the Art Quest Fair at the town hall, and you all got to appreciate that artwork as you were upstairs in room 400 at the reception. So huge, huge shout out to all of the teachers that provide that inspiration. Once again, West Hartford has been named one of the best communities for music education by the NAM Foundation. And I say once again because West Hartford has earned this distinction 19 times. That places West Hartford in the top 5% of districts nationally to have longevity with that award. And there are quite a significant number of districts nationally, representation from all over. There are only 2 other communities in West Hartford who have longer longevity than us. And I won't name them because they're not really as good. We need to catch up. It was already mentioned about the amazing recognition of our Hall High School principal, and so thank you for that, Kayla. But I had the privilege of joining both Sarah Isaacs, our Outstanding First Year Principal Award winner, as well as Jocelyn Tamburello-Noble, and building administrators from both schools at the Capitol building on the 29th of April, when each of them received public recognition and a proclamation. And I'm very, very thankful to our West Hartford delegation for coming out and supporting them and providing those citations to them. I also need to throw a huge shout out for a West Hartford team of students, too many to name, from both Sedgwick and Conard, who competed in the History Day competition this past weekend. There were a total of 9 Sedgwick students who medaled. They received medals, and 5 of the 9 qualified for National History Day in June based on being either first or second place in the statewide competition. And then likewise, there were 3 Conard competitors who all medaled, either first or second, and also qualified for the national contest. And I don't know, is one of them a relative of yours there? Yeah, excellent job, excellent job. Huge kudos going out to David Lee, Quest teacher at Sedgwick, for his inspiration, his guidance in and around this. Just so thankful. On the topic of Jewish Heritage Month, in addition to all the school-based events that are ongoing, the Office of Equity Advancement, coordinated with Edie, Patino, who is the Associate Director for Jewish Community Relations Council. She was a panelist and a speaker at a recent middle school career exploration where she provided insights about her job and how she became involved in Jewish advocacy. And then in addition, the Office of Equity was represented at the Storytelling for Impact workshop that was sponsored just last week, I believe, by the Jewish Leadership Academy and the Federation. So very proud for those partnerships and something to highlight, especially during this month. And then the America 250 efforts continue, and over the past several weeks, our teachers have led students through integrated science, social studies, and literacy units developed by our curriculum office, centered on the role of the white oak tree in our environment and within our history. Across schools, students have been engaged in read-alouds as an oak tree grows, using as a foundation to explore how white oaks have shaped northeastern communities like our own. There have been a number of events to include tree plantings that are ongoing through the very generous donations of our PTOs, and there are follow-up activities that will relate to the 250 project. And really, the whole thing, I'm so impressed with our curriculum team and their design around this, because it's not only an America 250 project, an environmental project, but it's a legacy project that will continue and be appreciated for years and years to come. Finally, it is toward the end of the year, and there are a number of things, and I want to make you aware of them, as you may have interest to attend, and I certainly want to make the public aware. Not the least of which is tomorrow, our high school career signing day, which is where we have students from both of our high schools who will come and be recognized in terms of career and technical fields that they're pursuing. That's here at the Town Hall tomorrow, Wednesday the 6th at 9 a.m. Upcoming, we have Laura Stack joining us. She's part of Johnny's Ambassadors. She's hosting a parent workshop on the dangers of THC. That's going to be hosted at Bristow, May the 11th at 6 p.m. She's coming back through the generosity of an anonymous West Hartford donor. She had previously presented to all of our high schools, and she'll do that parent workshop and then present to all of our middle schools. And it is... I just want to encourage folks. It's one of the most powerful presentations I've seen. Quest is keeping on its Type 3 roll, doing its elementary presentations at Charter Oak this coming Monday, May the 11th at 6 p.m. You guys got to see Shelley Solomon and speakers from the Adult Education Program. They'll be hosting their end-of-year celebration here at the Town Hall Auditorium on Friday, May the 15th at 5 p.m. We're hosting our annual mentor breakfast, Carol Wilkus, and all the amazing work she does. That's going to be here at the Town Hall Auditorium on May the 18th at 7:30 a.m. West Hartford Public Schools softball will be celebrating its 50th season. Celebration going to happen during the Mayor's Cup at Conard High School on Wednesday, May the 20th at 3:45 p.m. Please come out. They're going to be recognizing some of the longstanding coaches and just icons in sports here in West Hartford. We are moving forward with our military inductee ceremony on Tuesday, May the 26th at 6:30 p.m. And last but certainly not least, we have our Inter-El Festival. That's the inter-elementary, it's all of our elementary schools. That performance will be at the Bushnell. It is not to be missed. It is on Wednesday, May the 27th at 7:30 p.m. That is my update, pending your questions.
I have one question, not super relevant to this report, but I'm noticing the minutes, and I am curious if we ever found out an answer to the young lady who spoke about walking for graduation and that policy. I'm not expecting one on the spot, but if someone could share back with us, for those students in a similar situation moving forward, that they would be able to walk at graduation.
Yeah, we can certainly have more discussion, but our current policy, just to be clear, and first and foremost, I would want to share that our administrators, our counselors, and our teachers do every single thing possible, and I mean every single thing possible in support of students to help them overcome any obstacles and make the achievements necessary in order to graduate. But we do hold a bar of you do need to meet the actual state graduation requirements in order to walk at graduation. And I would offer it's a slippery slope to change that from a ceremony of that accomplishment to essentially something social or on a promise. What we find is often when there are big issues, and I in fairness, I don't want to talk about, obviously can't talk about any individual circumstances, but I would want to share that every effort is always made, and our goal is to support students with on-time graduation. And when they don't, we do offer, if they can't make it in a given year, we want to find a way to celebrate them, because the accomplishment is no less if it takes them into the summer or into another year, but it's a slippery slope. So something I would invite, if the board has interest, we can look at that, but that is, correct, that you need to be getting your diploma on that day in order to participate in that ceremony.
I don't want to take time now, but I am intrigued in the policy. So, either you can share it with the board or we can take it offline. I would just, I guess, highlight, college graduations, which I'm sure probably have differences. People walk, and even if they don't have all the credits. And I know this is a big deal. So anyways, yes, I would like to know the exact policy, either directly or through the board, whatever you find to be the easiest way.
Any other questions? All right. Yep.
I would support that explanation, that exploration.
Yeah, I'll happy to send you something, but I don't think it's going to be a lot different from what I'm saying. It's like the policy is you have to have achieved all of the you have to have earned all of the credits. We will work with kids right up until hours before graduation, but I'll prepare something and I'll be glad to share it with the board.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for those updates. Staff reports, board discussions, personnel report. So we're going to have Shannon join us.
No apologies necessary. This not for public posting, that is why.
So I'll wait till everybody gets a copy. But this is an update that I give 4 times a year regarding certified staff. So this reflects the changes since the last report that you received in February. You will notice that the list is definitely longer than last time, but that's very common for this time of year as we start to get more notifications of resignations and retirements. So on the first page, there are 12 resignations, which is consistent with what we had at this point last year. We were at 15. And although you'll notice that it says that staff have resigned for personal reasons, we do give out an exit survey to all staff that are leaving the district. So we do collect anonymous information on asking why they're choosing to leave. Because we always want to be focused on the retention of our staff, and we want to look for any trends. So I can share that 15% listed their reason for leaving as a relocation, 15% were for career advancement, 10% family needs, 10% were pursuing a career outside of education, 20% chose other, and then the remaining 30%, we give the survey out also if people are retiring, so 30% chose retirement. So it's always good for us to look and just notice, some of those reasons and some of those trends. In addition to the survey, I also offer to have an in-person meeting with any staff that are leaving, and I have had 12 meetings so far this year, and it is always a good opportunity. I always appreciate that face-to-face conversation just to get more input from people. Looking at the next page, you'll see with the retirements, so far we have 18 for this year. Last year at this time, we were at 16. And I do certainly want to take a minute to acknowledge and give our deep gratitude to the list of retirees. Collectively, they have given 401, I did the math twice, years of service to the West Hartford Public Schools and our students. And the people on that list have averaged over 22 years in our classrooms. So we definitely want to wish them, yeah, that is a round of applause. That is a healthy, joyful, and fulfilling retirement. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you collect these back? I don't recall.
I can't.
Thank you, Shannon. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now on to routine matters, approval of the minutes. So recommendation that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting that took place on April 21st, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
I guess, do we just vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, information and reports. Board members, any communication and reports from other boards, organizations? Anything? Okay. Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question in anticipation of next week's class size workshop, right? Is it possible to get information as well about physical space considerations,
Absolutely.
please?
Can you tell me more, email me specifically what you're looking for? I'd be glad to build that in.
Sure. I guess I'm trying to anticipate the conversations about numbers and classroom, how much they can hold if you expand. So, and then if, how does that play out with actually what space there are? Like, what is the makeup of each, elementary school and how this would affect, like, what you need?
No, absolutely.
Et cetera.
Understood.
That's just, hope that helps.
Happy to provide that.
Okay, thank you.
And we can get more granular, but the short answer when we've looked at that in the past is historically, we do have adequate room in our classrooms, where we would need to, potentially displace, or if something was there, it might mean that a particular content area, like a world language or something, which might have a dedicated room, could get displaced, or something of that nature. But the overall classroom space is generally adequate for what we've seen with increasing and decreasing. But we'll look at it a lot more granularly to make sure that we're prepared to respond to that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, great, thanks. Okay, so future business, announcement of future meeting dates. Next meeting, Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, regular Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. here. And then Tuesday, June 2nd, our final meeting, regular Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m., also here. Is there a request for future agenda items? I have one too before I pass it over to you, Jason. So this wouldn't be necessarily for, one of the next two meetings, but it would be for an agenda item for like the beginning of next school year, around the inclusion of student voice on the board. I know we have our two student reps from student council, but we're looking to get more broad, just more diverse voices and engagement. So thinking about student leaders, and, just different ways we can have those interactions, from meeting them at school to maybe panels, but wanted to bring it up so that we all could talk, share ideas about different initiatives we think could be.
So if I may, something that we used to do, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not, but because it kind of ended with COVID and we haven't brought it back yet, is we had on the agenda, we had what was called student participation, and we would try to, if not at every meeting, at least once a month, have a student group, something that was a group of students who would come, and I believe, I don't know if it was before public comment or after public comment, I'd look, but they would come and make a very short presentation, 5-6 minute presentation, to kind of provide that student voice. That's something we can certainly do. We can resurrect. The alternative, or perhaps not an or, but maybe an and, if there's something specific of interest that the board kind of hones in on, that they're aware of, or recommendations that I bring forward to you for a more formal presentation. Sometimes, as you see, we have presentations where we will not only have the adult voices but the student voices be able to share, and we could do more of that, or do something that is student focused in that way. So there's a couple of ways we could accomplish that.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and I'd definitely love for us to have it on the agenda so we could just have a more formalized conversation about it and lock that down.
To the extent you need a second, I'll second that.
Thank you. All right.
And then just renewing what we talked about earlier on our very detailed tangent, very appreciative of the thoughtfulness and the deliberate process that you guys are working on. And if I was thinking of a resolution, it would be much along the lines of what you're already doing. I was especially appreciative of this idea of, not swinging the pendulum all the way back because we're reacting to something, but doing something that's very data-driven. So I would just like to keep that on the agenda. I think it's really important to, obviously, the many, many parents we've heard from. We're all parents up here who are dealing with these things. So very important to, I think, to keep that on the agenda.
No, absolutely. Definitely planning, for that as a Board of Education report coming up in the fall at some point. And I had already told the principal group, expect this to be part of my convocation comments. First meeting back with teachers to be able to try to provide some expectation setting with everyone.
I would humbly suggest, we could get maybe a round A, round B. Like, to me, elementary school kids accessing YouTube is just like an easy no more. Like, to me, I don't know what the reason for that would be. And so I appreciate having the conversation, and not everything can happen at once, but I would imagine there's some low-hanging fruit we can execute for the start of the school year that I would really like to see happen. And then the items that require a more detailed conversation, we could, obviously pursue that too.
No, understood. Agreed.
Sorry, so just to clarify, this will be on the agenda for the 19th for us to discuss, or?
No, I was understanding that we would like future reports, and I'm hearing a couple of reports next year about the progress, what's immediate, what's the follow-up, which is kind of already in the direction that I'm planning, so.
I mean, just to follow up on Miriam's comment, my expectation too was that we would be discussing this at one of the next two meetings so that work can be done to execute for the start of school. I mean, again, I to me, there's lots of things. Like, I know that there are kids in elementary school who bring their cell phones. I know that kids are on YouTube when they have free time. I know that it's hard to turn around the Titanic, but again, I think it is really important that we do this quickly, some of these things. And tell me what's possible, I guess. But my understanding was we were going to be discussing this at one of the next two meetings to take action where we could, and then obviously some other things will require more conversation.
So I had a different understanding based on what was discussed with between Paul and Ann and what they're working on, and my position would be, what I heard is they're gathering the right voices, they're meeting with the right people, they're working on these very things. I think they have the charge from us. I'm not sure what, especially given the agenda, the tightness of the agendas over the next two meetings, what we would really add to that, other than give them the charge that we've already given, that the community has given them, which is we want less screen time in the classes, but it needs to be a very reasoned look at it. And I'm sure I can tell you anecdotally, they're already doing these things. Third grade at Aiken is having screen-free week, and the challenge is to also continue that at home. So these things are already taking place across the district. I think they are taking place across the district, whether it's in every classroom right now, probably open for debate. But I think the district, what more are we asking? The district is looking at this, they're planning for it.
What I'm asking for is, I would like to know that changes will be implemented for the start of the next school year. And so if that can't happen, I would like to better understand why. And I guess one question would be, are you coming back and seeking some sort of approval from us for these changes? Because if not, it would seem to me you could share with us on the 2nd, and we could give feedback. And I guess if you're not, if folks aren't thinking these are going to be changes for the start of the school year, when would they be changes for? And I guess what other hurdles are in the way of executing on that?
Well, as I was sharing, at convocation, I plan to have comments that talk about expectations so that I can outline them with teachers. So I do anticipate changes, but and there's low-hanging fruit. I don't know that surfaces to the level of a Board of Education report. I'm not as I've kind of said, there's a larger look at this that we need to do in terms of what's happening in instructionally. But if, I've kind of already said it, and I'll say it again, and if you want me to come back and say it some more, I'll say it some more. The low-hanging fruit pieces, we're happy to do. Those aren't necessarily difficult decisions when we talk about people. But I wouldn't also want to characterize any one anecdote as something that's epidemic across the schools. But that said, I'm aware we need to look more deeply at what some instructional practices are. We want to look at, I think the part we need to take some time is, hey, if there are certain platforms that are in use that we feel aren't important, we need to make sure that we can, it's not just a matter of, unplugging it and ripping it out. We say, well, what are you using that for? What's the alternative? How do you get back to that? I think there may be some professional development that we need to do. There may be some communication structures that need to happen across our middle schools, and so that they can assure that the student's experience is, that was one of the things that brought this to the forefront, more so at the beginning of the year, that the collective amount of screen time that was happening in that case at the middle schools was more necessarily than the teams had realized, because they didn't have good communication structures around what they're doing. So some of that's pacing out. If there are pieces that we need to keep, how are they paced? Where do they live in the curriculum? There might be parts like that, but there's a ton of easy things that we can do. And I think our principals have the message. We have the message. We're going to execute that message. I would want you to have confidence in that. I'm not really sure the granularity with which you want me to come back and speak about it.
I guess I'm not having a ton of confidence, to be honest, Paul, with the comments about how many times you want me to say it. I guess my concern comes down to the fact that I think, a lot of parents are very concerned with, obviously, tech usage. It's, I think, pretty apparent and not anecdotal that tech is being used in schools in a way that I think most people would agree is inappropriate. I am looking for examples and maybe a list of that type of activity that will change. I'm looking for, I'm not exactly sure how this is executed, but let's just say, no more YouTube and I get that's a broad blanket, whatever it is, but this is for the example, no more YouTube in elementary. My hope would be, or in my mind, how this would play out would be, you, Paul, come back to the board and say, hey, we heard you, public and everyone else, on tech. Here are 10 things that we are planning to implement by the start of the school year. No more, whatever it is, so that the community understands what's happening. Because right now, I don't know of any changes besides like kind of the one-off, a school's going tech-free for a week or what have you, that are planned. And so that's what I'm looking for, is like, what is going to be changed for next year?
That message hasn't changed for me, so I hear it. I continue to hear it. I'm sorry you don't have confidence
So
in
when
it.
will
But
we
let me
know?
finish.
I guess when will we know then?
Let me finish, please. You're asking for something without a deep understanding of what actually is happening in the schools. That's the part that takes time. It's great for folks to come in and share some anecdotes and say everything's on fire and everything's broken. without necessarily a deep picture and understanding. We'll provide that, and we'll make sure that we can make, right-size changes, and we can do immediate things. And if you want me to come in and give you 10 things, I'll come in and give you 10 things. But what I'm telling you is, it's not going to be over. The discussion on my end, my work, is not going to be done on June 2nd. There's a lot of effort and work that I will continue to need to do, and it will be ongoing improvements. There are fast things that we can do. The YouTube stuff, some of what you're saying, I got it. I hear it. I don't disagree. I want to look at it. You mentioned, elementary kids that bring cell phones to school, and I know that there are medical situations where that occurs, but I'm not aware of an elementary student that's bringing their cell phone to school and using it in a classroom and like that's being okay by a teacher. So some of these things are just kind of anecdotes, and they're not part of broader policies, but that policy already exists. So, I don't know exactly what you want me to report on in that regard, but I'm not on a different side of this than you are. I'm not trying to go slow, but I am trying to make sure that whatever changes we make stick and are implemented with fidelity and are clear for our teachers. So I'm just looking to say, yes, I hear you. We can give you some broad stroke stuff for the beginning of the year, and then we can come back and give you multiple reports throughout the year as to how it's going.
Thanks, Paul. Jonathan?
I'll defer for now.
Ethan?
My comment was going to be, there's been a lot of comments from people, but no, we've never asked you to do anything. So to all of a sudden turn on a dime, say something in 2 weeks, I don't think it's fair. I do think we need to look at it, but we need to look at it and do it right. So it's just my 2 cents.
Oh, it's just to follow up on that. I think the community has spoken. It's clearly a priority of the community. It's clearly a priority of this board. But I understand that it took us well over 6 years to get to this position, and it is going to be difficult to turn on a dime and get back. So I would certainly agree with Jason that we want a deeper and more reasoned analysis of what to do. That being said, if there are things that we could be doing more quickly, we should be doing them. And I would agree with Jen on that. That if there's something that and you could even update us on what you plan to put into your convocation speech to the teachers in terms of the priorities of this board and the priorities of the administration on the tech side.
Agreed. And I don't disagree with Jen. I don't disagree with you. I think it's both. I think there are things I can share with you in the immediate, and I think there are longer term things that are going to require some thought and some time. That's all.
Thank you. And that was one point I was going to make, that I do think it is imperative that we consider both, that there are things that we should be doing now that we don't have to recreate the wheel on. We have, for example, Los Angeles Unified School District, the second largest school district in the country, 500,000 students, many of whom in Title I schools, made very significant changes in their resolution that they're going to be voting on in June. So, for example, there are also other districts in Connecticut who have policies. There are countries, not America, countries as a whole who have enacted various tech bans, and they have seen the benefit of such policies in place. So I appreciate that, yes, we need to be thoughtful, and we need to have a thorough ed tech audit or investigation, however we want to frame it, from our specialists in-house. I would also like to say that perhaps our IT department of 15.5 staff, FTEs, could be running reports to show exactly how many hours our Chromebooks and our iPads and all of our devices are being used, and how many websites and how many hours on YouTube, and how much money essentially is then generated by the outside. How, we're looking at usage hours, we're looking at non-school approved usage hours by students. I mean, these are all real issues that are being explored across the country, across the world. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have great examples of school districts who are making very significant policy changes And yes, maybe they have been exploring some of this longer than we have, but it doesn't negate the fact that, when you have experts in a variety of medical and allied fields, and mental health, et cetera, all expressing very grave concerns about the impact of our students, yes, we as a board can set a broad resolution, some broad thoughts about what we would like to see happen, and it's up to the district then to come up with how you operationalize that and what that would look like in the various schools. So I do think that we can do both. I do think that that in the next couple meetings, we could discuss further a resolution with some of our priorities for immediate action to be considered for the beginning of the school year. Again, we don't have to recreate the wheel. So that's, and certainly we can look at existing policies, other school districts, et cetera, and have those as reference available at that time.
So I think we're mostly on the same page. The question is in terms of deliverables and what we're looking for. So for instance, even if I were to think that, we should pass a resolution and it should direct you guys to do something, I want that to be an informed resolution. And I don't necessarily know what I'm looking for because I may think something is low-hanging fruit. For instance, YouTube. I will tell you, there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube that has led kids to find whole areas of science or history that they didn't know anything about that they fell in love with. So to say that, there should be no tech in grades K through 2, I don't know that to be the case. I know it sounds really good. I don't know that to be the case. And I know that Los Angeles has a resolution where they're directing the district to do something. But again, what did they do to get to that point? What information did they have to better create a directive? And that's what I think you guys are going to spend the summer doing, and meeting with the stakeholders in the community, kind of gathering that information, doing the ed tech audit. And so I think I need more information before I direct you, because that's the resolution that I had in mind for a future agenda item would be directing you to do what it sounds like you're about to do.
Jason, we can also discuss, and look at policies and links. I mean, in these resolutions, they're citing literature and experts. So to spend some time, I think it's an important subject, that we can do our own research. And I think maybe some of us have done more than others, and that's fine. There's just a plethora out there. Like, it's out there. The evidence is there. The data is there. So we can look at it and,
But we're missing our data. That's key, because whatever we build, I want to be West Hartford's. I want it to fit our needs. And so again, I think we're on the same page. We're speaking the same language. It's just what are we looking for that the district isn't going to be undertaking?
I guess for me, it's the timeliness of it. I mean, I had a kindergartner, more than one, come home and they learned about YouTube in kindergarten. I mean, to me, that's a very hard to understand example. And I guess I worry too about kids, the longer we take to take action, the more harm is potentially caused. And I agree, I'm not looking for rip all the iPads out of school, but kind of as was mentioned, some of this low-hanging fruit, whatever you want to call it, using time on iPads as a reward or what have you. And I understand that it can't, be across the board cuts, but I do think there are actions we can take in the near term, and that's what I'm looking for. And I appreciate that our schedule is ending in June. What I'm trying to understand is if something is going to be rolled out for next year, what we're thinking that's going to be, and then I guess a general timeline of when we can expect more information, which maybe you can share at the next meeting or the June meeting. But I guess I'm not understanding what is happening. I think that I need more clarity on that, perhaps. But I do think time is of the essence here, and that has to be a piece of it as well.
Yes, our ed tech opt-out. So this is also something that's been a hot topic. Parents are doing it. They're asking for it. So I think this is something that we need to consider, at least discuss, find out how that would look in our district. And I appreciate the parents who've been sending articles, who are involved in various grassroots advocacy groups, who have been sharing a lot of information, making suggestions. So, many thanks to our community for speaking up and for helping educate us and helping empower us also to make these decisions.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, good discussion. And it sounds like we have some things in motion. Paul's agreed to share some things that could potentially happen immediately, and then we have a committee being formed. And this is just my, kind of 2 cents on this. I'm excited that that this is gonna be on the menu. I know that this is something we have been thinking about. From the space of being a community organizer for many years, one of the things I had to come to know when it comes to making things move is you do need to, there does have to be time to hear an array of voices. And so we've heard the community. We've heard some of the community, by the way. I want to point that out. When, in the grand scheme of how many families we have and the communities they represent, we've heard some of the community. We haven't really heard the majority of the majority of parents on this. We haven't heard student voice on this. And I'm excited about the staff group because we need to hear their voices as well. And I think that's what's gonna help us make the informed decision. So yes, we hear families and we wanna hear from everyone and we wanna take the time and energy and intentionality to do it in a way that's gonna make sense for West Hartford and also be sustainable so we don't have to keep coming back to the table, so.
Just one other point on student voices. I just want to mention that we do have two extraordinarily capable student seats. I know we have Conrad tonight in place of Bridget. We've had Kayla. You're empowered to do more than just report on what's happening in the high schools. As far as I'm concerned, and I sincerely hope my colleagues agree with me. If we're asking for student voice, you're it. You were elected to be the student voice for your high schools, and as far as I'm concerned, for all of these schools that funnel up to your high schools. We value your input. And if we're talking about a classroom-facing topic like this and its effect on students, please feel free to speak up. Don't hesitate. We want to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah. All right. So, oh, you want to say something? Go ahead, Conrad. Go ahead.
I would just need to gather my thoughts for 10 seconds, but I think that I've been at a couple of these, and this is always the most prevalent conversation. And I think it's a very valuable conversation to have because I even see it throughout my own grade. Like, I think the main issue is not the YouTube, it's the access to social media that has like the scrolling feature to it. So it's less about the actual YouTube, and it's more about the access to information that doesn't help you in any way. For example, if I watch a TikTok, I'm gonna forget it in a minute. A YouTube video, on the other hand, like you pointed out earlier, can open up many perspectives to science, history, and passions. I think that the social media part of it and the scrolling part is a thing that doesn't open that up and is a much more prevalent issue than the one of a YouTube. But this is mainly high school what I'm talking about, since I think, like you said earlier, it's a very different stage of development for many different kids. And I have 3 younger brothers, all at different points, one in elementary school, one middle school, and another one in high school. And I can see it too, like when you compare how I went about technology when I was 7 versus my brother, there is a difference, and I think that does need to be noted. And I do think that is influenced by school, but also not directly that they have access to it all the time. So like you said earlier, it's not like any kid has the phone out in an elementary school. It's more of a topic of conversation that is interesting to everyone because some kids don't have it. And what happens is, as they kind of like think it's cool, so this one kid who is allowed to do it, then is, I don't know, he gets more attention and that topic spreads, and that's how the greed for technology happens at that age. But I think in the elementary schools, like eliminating reward systems, like you said, could be very beneficial because it eliminates that like game aspect to it and that like dopamine hit almost that you also get with a TikTok. But on the other hand, I do need to say it isn't realistic to fully eliminate it because these skills that kids develop with technology is just a crucial part of anyone's development, especially in a completely different generation.
Should have just gone to you first, and then we would have had the problem solved.
I appreciate the comments because, and I apologize again. I'm not frustrated with this conversation. I am frustrated with the broad stroke that I hear painted for schools, and I think Conrad, you provide a very authentic viewpoint on the explanation of the intricacies of this. And it cycles back to what Ann shared about, her effort with this isn't just curricular. Her intent is to pull in the parent community and to talk about those aspects as they exist and as they live outside of the school hours, because I will wholesale admit that we have work to do to right size the amount of screen time that kids are getting in the schools. We need to look at what assignments are. We've talked about it. I've talked about, Ann can nod up and down, that we talked with our principals about the gamification of homework. That's something that I want to get rid of. How fast it happens is in an expectation is very fast. In terms of like what folks talk about, bringing back textbooks and all the rest, that's the longer look that we need to make, because I'm here to tell you that the textbook makers ain't out there anymore like they used to be. So there are pieces to this puzzle that require thoughtful analysis, but there are pieces that can be fast, and then there's a home responsibility, and part of that are things that we want to do, not in an aggressive or pushy way, but in an educational way with parents to be able to talk to them about alternatives. So I think I do get frustrated with the broad strokes that this gets talked in about, that, and it often feels like, everything at the school is broken, when in reality, I think there are pieces that we can fix, need to fix, want to fix, and some of it's fast, and some of it's going to take a little bit of time. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, big conversation that lots of voices have to weigh in on. I was a fourth grade teacher, and we taught fourth graders how to code, and yeah, just a lot of different things. So I don't know, big discussion. So we talked about those requests for future agenda items. Any comments from visitors? No. All right. We don't have executive session. And all right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Me. We have to vote? Oh, yeah. I mean, does anybody know? Aye. 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 All right, great. Motion adjourned at 9:33.